Okay, good evening and welcome to the Real Me, chapter 27. I'm doing this a little early. It's Motzei Shabbos, Erev Rosh Hashanah. We're starting a new uh, a new part of the book. It's called "A Home is Built with Wisdom." Chachma Yibon Abayis, family relationships according to the Torah. How we're supposed to treat, when we get married and we have a family. What's the Torah perspective on these things? The first chapter, chapter 27, love your wife as yourself. We're trying to talk about marriage, the point of marriage. Probably the most often discussed topic in the world. Probably, what is marriage about? Why do you want to get married? How do you have a great marriage, or a good marriage, or an okay marriage? How do you avoid divorce at its worst? Marriage is something universally everyone usually succumbs to or wants to. Some people succumb to it, some people want it. Usually women want it more than men. Men do it because culturally that's the accepted norm, is to get married, or the woman always, you want to have a girlfriend and she always wants to get married, so you want to be nice to your girlfriend, she wants to get married, so you get married because she wants to get married. The reason men don't want to be married to a woman is because the responsibility of a husband is so great. He's the one responsible for making the marriage a success, really. In its truth, he's 100% responsible. She's not responsible at all. Man bears all the responsibility, all the achrayas, the responsibility of the marriage. Plus, he has to be married to that woman in our society for the rest of his life, um, until death do us part. So, it's a hard choice for a man. Woman is happy with, as long as she gets one good man, one solid man. If it's a solid man, she'll be happy with the guy. It'll be her bed of support. But you know, men, ideally would like to have many partners, but we'll talk about that at a different time. But um, we, in our present society, and certainly in the Jewish society, and certainly in the Haredi society, which is safer as for, marriage is culturally very important. Uh, it's recommended. It's more than just a mitzvah in the Torah. We know it's a mitzvah in the Torah to get married, to have kids. Some say marriage is not a mitzvah, having the kids is a mitzvah, but practically you're not going to be able to have kids, to have relations with a woman, unless you actually get married to her. So a lot of people will get married so they can have kids, or they can enjoy the marital relations, sex. Um, so here in this chapter, he talks about loving your wife as yourself as the ingredient needed for a great marriage. He says, "What is the point of marriage? Like, why do we get married?" I remember when I was in shidduchim. I was in shidduchim for 10 years. People asked me. My parents asked me, but people were asking, like, why do you want to get married? I mean, obviously you're getting married because there's peer pressure. Everyone else in your circles is getting married. There's a mitzvah in the Torah of pruvavu, maybe a mitzvah in the suin. It's supposed to make you happy in life. You don't want to be lonely. But really, at the end of the day, why do you want to get married? And I didn't really have an answer to the question. I gave the classical answer as pruvavu, and I was very from back then. One of them mitzvah pruvavu. Um, Maybe there's mitzvah nisuin, getting married. I want to do a strive for serve Hakadosh Baruch Hu, pay Hakadosh Baruch Hu back, bring Avdei Hashem into the world. Have children that will serve Hashem, and do Chesed for my wife and things like that. And for most people in the Haredi circles, marriage is a spiritual investment. That's really what it is. He says at the end of the chapter, he says, where does he say this? He said, this is often how a Ben Torah and a Beis Yaakov graduate get married. This is what marriage is based on. He is ready to give in, right? He's mavater. He gives in to whatever his wife needs, meaning as long as she doesn't ask him not to learn Torah to be a Rosh Hashiva, and she is ready to sacrifice. She takes care of the kids. She takes care of all the financials in the house. A lot of the times, she'll take care of the grocery shopping. She'll take care of taking the kids to the doctor. The husband, he goes first Seder, second Seder, third Seder, night Seder, and he's a Maggid Shir, he's a Sholem Meshiv, and eventually he's a Rebbe, a Rosh Hashiva, a Rav, something, hopefully. The really serious B'nai Torah, this is how, right, we're taught. People are taught in yeshiva, you aspire to be a gadol. We talked about that, the aspiration of every Haredi person to be that gadol, if he's a serious Ben Torah. But neither of them is ready for the basics, the author says, to take pleasure in the new bond between them. And that's how this bond that could have provided happiness and bliss becomes an unwanted burden. He says this is his take. The author's take is that the point of marriage is for companionship, which is natural, right? Every man desires a companion. Every woman desires a companion also. And that's the point of marriage. It's not, he says it's not, there's two things he says it's clearly it's not. Some people say marriage is just to satisfy a physical urge, right? People get married, especially in the Haredi communities where, premarital sex is frowned upon. You can't do that. So the only way to, be able to indulge in that pleasure that you want is to get married. So you know, people say no one does this in the creative world, but a lot of people do this in the back of their mind. I've even heard people in my yeshiva saying, "Yeah, I want to get married already, so I can just have sex with my wife." So at the end of the day, a lot of people do it for that reason because otherwise it's unattainable. You can't get this pleasure if you don't get married. So they'll do it for that reason, which is not a good reason to get married because now you're stuck with this woman the rest of your life. And, the physical pleasure you'll enjoy a little bit in the beginning, but then it's going to wear off. You're not going to enjoy it so much anymore. And you're going to be left with this wife for the rest of your life unless you can get divorced, which is not a good thing, especially if you have children. So that's one thing he says is terrible. And he also says terrible, which this is a big chiddush that he says this, but this is really important that he says this, is that oftentimes, what he's saying over here is oftentimes in the Haredi community, marriage is viewed as a spiritual partnership. That's what it means. Sometimes it's both the girl and the boy. More often than not, it's usually the boy, and the girl doesn't fully understand this because women really, even though they're taught in Beis Yaakov they want a learning boy, at the end of the day, their emotions control women very much. And I've been reading this serial they have in Mishpacha magazine about these young couples that living in Ramat Eshkol, and their husbands are learning. One husband is a serious learner, and one husband is a mashpia, someone who hangs out with the guys, gets them into learning. And I think it was the 6th chapter of the serial or whatever. But basically, the idea is that both of these wives are unhappy with their husbands, and both of these wives are sacrificing. They know they're sacrificing. One is the husband is a very serious learner, and the other husband is serious about learning, but about helping and mechazik and strengthening other guys in learning. They just want a natural relationship with their husband. The serial said she took the guy. They went out to pick glasses out for the guy. The husband wanted to pick out glasses. They went with his wife. And she's picking out the ones that she's looking at the glasses that would make her happy, that make the husband look good in her eyes, that she'll be happy with. And he's too busy focusing on fitting in with the crowd, with the guys that he's influencing. He wants to look like them. So it's kind of funny that all women just want to have. They're very simple. They just want to have a marriage. They want to have connection to their husband, even if they take on a lot of responsibilities in order to make sure that he's learning and learning full time, and he has a lot of time to learn and to influence other people in the Torah way. That's all women basically they're bound to their emotions. They're living in this world, but men have different aspirations. And when they get married, a lot of time, when I was going through shidduchim, that's the important. Even though I said, of course, I want to care about my wife, things like that. I really wanted to become the Gadol Hador, and I wanted to become a big rabbi, Rosh Hashiva. I told this to certain girls, and why did I get married? Because you can't become a Rosh Hashiva if you're single. I mean, no one's they'll think you're weird, you're strange, no one likes you. You gotta get married. You gotta have 10 kids, You gotta build a bias of chesed, and But at the end of the day, you're just looking for a woman who's gonna help you have kids and take care of those kids and send you off to the beis medrash every day and come back at 1:00 in the morning. Send them at 7:00 in the morning, and you come back at 1:00 in the morning. So he says it's just a spiritual partnership, and oftentimes the husband will tell the wife, he'll tell her, you know what, don't worry, you don't know the schar, we're going to split the schar and Olam Haba, all my learning is getting a schar. But what about Olam Hazeh? What about this world? You're neglecting your wife's basic needs in this world. Sometimes the women also do it for the spiritually. He says many times that your wife is not your chavrusa. I've seen this. I see this personally in my family, my wife's family. Certain husbands, they treat their wife as a chavrusa. They learn with them. When most of their conversations between them are about Torah, about speaking. I know when I was dating and I was engaged once. I mentioned this once. I was engaged. I had a broken engagement. When I was, even after the engagement, a lot of times I would talk to. I had nothing to talk to her about, so I would speak to her about what I was learning and telling her different Torah. And she liked it, but hearing a different part of Torah once in a while is nice, but not most of your conversation should be about different Torah. So that spirituality, you said you shouldn't form. It's not about chavrusa. It's not a spiritual bond that you're building together, or you're building a house of avodas Hashem together. It's completely contrary to the natural inclination of people. Man wants a wife, and a woman wants a man for companionship. That's something they share. He also says it's not something called friendship, right? A lot of people say, "Oh, my wife's my best friend," right? That's their way of saying, no, we're not doing it for the indulgence, the physical indulgence. We're not doing it for spiritually. We're friends, right? But he says that's a problem also because a lot of times, just men and women are inherently very different types of people. They're very different, right? Men are more intellectual, women are more emotional, but they're very different how they react to things. And a lot of times you'll marry a woman who has a very different personality than you. Whether you knew it or not going into the marriage, you'll find it out, or people change after the marriage. I certainly changed after my marriage. I was a very big introverted person when I got married. Now I'm the most extroverted person in the world, but people's personality changes. People not only personality change, but also just they just enjoy different things. They have different enjoyments. She might enjoy reading. He might enjoy, I don't know, doing exercise or physical things. So they have different enjoyments. So if it's a friendship, usually when you have a friend, if people have friends, usually I always say as a friend, it has to be mutually beneficial. Every second that you're spending with that friend has to be time that you're enjoying and he's enjoying. If you're overstepping those boundaries, meaning you're spending time with him just for his benefit or he's spending time with you just for your benefit, that's no longer a friendship. A friendship has to be mutually beneficial because you're not related to this person. You have no connection to this person. If you're spending time together because you both enjoy each other's company and spending time together, that's a great friendship and you should pursue that. But at the second where you're doing things that you you don't enjoy, and he's enjoying it, or neither, sometimes you need to enjoy, people feel the obligation, socially, that they should have to have friends. So most people are not good at making friends or keeping friends. People say they want to say I have 20, 25 friends. Really, if you have 20 friends, you have no friends. A married man or a married woman has room in their life for maybe one friend, maybe one good friend, maybe not. Most people can't make friends. That's the honest truth. People say they have lots of friends. Most people can't make friends because making a friend is a really hard thing to do because you have to be a really fun person. Because if someone's going to want to spend time with you, they have to be interested in fun, and if you want to spend time with the other person, they also have to be fun. So you have to have two fun people. Otherwise, it's not going to be a friendship. It's going to be just faking a friendship to say that you have friends. But that's not the discussion over here. He's just saying that your wife shouldn't be your friend because even if you do share things in common, a lot of things you wouldn't share in common, and you're supposed to care for her even if it's not mutually beneficial. That's evident, right? The Gemara says, he quotes the Gemara that you're supposed to be oyev isha kegufo, you're supposed to love your wife like yourself. And the Rambam says, based on the Gemara, seemingly you honor your wife more than yourself. So you have to care for your wife. You really have to care for her. And even when it's not good for you, when it's very difficult for you, you have to try to care about her. And she should try to care about you in order to have a successful marriage. Both people should care about each other. Ultimately, it's the responsibility on the husband. But if you want to have a successful marriage, you have to care about your wife. And even when it's not beneficial for you, you're not enjoying it, right? It's hard. It's difficult to do these chores, to wash the dishes, clean the floor, take the kids to the doctor. I don't know, whatever you have to do, but it's not fun things, but you do them anyway because you want to have a good marriage. And the good marriage is the companionship. That's what he says. A lot of this Sefer, I really agree with a lot of the questions and the problems that he brings up. And I don't often agree with the answer, the suggestions he ways of answering the difficulties that we have with our normal life. Basically, the whole purpose of this Sefer is he's raising, he's confronting, how he says, a guide to greatness while recognizing reality. A lot of the Mitzvah Sfarim and the Torah literature that we have does not recognize reality. Recognizing our human needs and wants balancing that with reality. That's why he has so many good questions, so many interesting topics that he brings up. The way he resolves these questions, I don't agree with, but this one I do agree with. I really agree with, and he brings from Sheva Brachos, right? So he ends the chapter with a really powerful thing here. He says the Navi in Yeshayahu says, "Misos chasan al kal." The happiness of the Gemara is will be the happiness of Hashem with you. Hashem will be happy with us when the redemption arrives like chasan over his kal. The Navi in Yeshayahu compares the redemption, Moshe Mashiach, to the simcha of a chasan of his kal. We learn from this the happiness of a chasan over his kal is a natural thing, right? If happiness was over a mitzvah, right? You're happy, chasan is happy to marry the kal because now he's Mekayim mitzvah pruvu. Then it could have said like the happiness of an avrech over his gemara. Why did it say, right? That's also a mitzvah, right? Or the happiness of Jew over his tefillin. Desire exists in the depth of the nefesh, but sometimes it lies dormant. It's possible to awaken it and refresh it with the correct action. This is our job, and our bliss depends on it. He says that's the point. One has to be a natural marriage. The Gemara says even more in the Gemara in Yavamos that a man always has to be with a wife, even if his wife dies. He has children. He's Mekayim Purva. He still has to marry a woman. Lo tovi yos adam levado. It's not good for a man to be by himself, and really, it's not good for a woman either to be by herself. You need companionship, and that's what marriage provides. The only thing that I'm going to add to what he's saying, and really just an addition, something he probably wouldn't say, but I want to say it, is that yes, the reason you get married is for companionship, to have a partner in life, and part of the companionship is enjoying each other's presence because, men have different qualities, different viewpoints than women. Women are based on emotions usually, and men usually base their decisions more on intellect. And it's a nice balance when you have something different, when you have something opposing factors at play, when you see a woman's reaction. It's very interesting, her reactions emotionally. He said a lot of times Ombe Pellis was saved because she didn't care about kavod. She was telling him, what do you gain by being involved in this machlokas? And he brings other examples. When the Gemara in Brachos, it says that Elazar ben Azariah, she was concerned about his disgrace if he was appointed as Rosh Hashiva. Not having the white hair, they're gonna disgrace him. He got a beard eventually of white hair, so he'd look older. She cared about emotional things, which help. Every human cares about emotional things also. A man can't see those things. So it's nice to have that balance that a woman has. And for a woman also, she sees things on a more emotional level. Sometimes she doesn't see the logical thing. Things have to add up in logic, have to make sense practically, even though we really want things, have strong desires for something, and a woman has strong feelings and desires. But at the time, things have to work out logically based on money, based on time, practicality. That's what a man brings. So when you have those two things together, it's fun. It makes life interesting when you have that balance and you see the two different views on something and how you balance and make it work together. And it's fun to be around a woman and a woman around a man. It makes life interesting, makes it enjoyable. When you're living single, there's no comparison to someone who's living married because you're just enjoying your company together. I will add that I do believe that companionship is only significant in a man and a woman because it can lead to the higher purpose of marriage, which is it's not the only purpose of marriage, but enjoying each other physically, the sexual aspect of marriage is really the main part of marriage. But it's the end of the game, but the process of getting there is also fun. Anytime you have a man and a woman talking, sometimes you can have, that's what he's talking about. We're talking about chavrusa, it's talking about a logical discussion. When they're just having fun, a man and woman, and they're letting their personalities balance out each other, so then it's like flirting, flirtation, that makes, husband then go out to eat, or they go on a walk, or so they spend time together, they can flirt with each other, and, the end point of flirting is to end in the bedroom and to make it fun. That's the end game. But flirtation is a fun thing in and of itself. And that's what makes the marriage exciting. If you're able to do that, if you're able to flirt, and you're able to make it exciting. So I wouldn't say it's just companionship for the sake of companionship. It's companionship because it could lead to somewhere else. It is nice to have a companion also, just to escort you wherever you're going. makes you feel comfortable. But the real companionship is something, it's a sexual aspect where it could lead to something sexual, even if it doesn't lead to something sexually, but there's a good feeling when you're flirting, even when you're going on a date with a girl and you're flirting with them and you're having a good time. Like that's exciting. That's man and woman at its best. Meaning, when you're flirting with a girl and you're conquering the girl and you're causing her to like you, and she likes you and you like her. There's nothing better than that. That's life itself. That's a source of life. That moment. It's not just because it'll end in the bedroom. That whole process is exciting and thrilling. And now the problem is nowadays is that once you get married, usually that fades, this flirtation, because you already conquered the woman. She can't just leave the marriage. You can't leave the marriage. You can't marry a different woman. So the flirtation sort of ends, and that sort of ends the life of a marriage. It's hard work to keep that companionship interesting. The fun part of marriage. Marriage is a companionship. It has to be a fun. It has to be interesting, not just that you're balancing each other just to make logical decisions and proceed through life, know what to do with your children, know how to proceed financially. You have to actually enjoy your time together, the fun times. That's what he's talking about. I think that's what the author's talking about, the fun parts of life, the companionship of the fun times. um, I will say one other thing that he says over here. He says that a marriage that is based on commonalities is a faulty marriage. You shouldn't want it. You should be different than your wife. Now, it doesn't say you should marry someone who's different, but he says we have to acknowledge that men and women are different, right off the bat. Every man is different than every woman, different personalities, and usually men and women don't have the same personalities. But I think there is a concept of zivugo or zivugo shel adam, right? Um, a zivug, we always talk about find your zivug. We say that, a zivug's a pair. And really, Adam and Chava was the first pair. Really, you're missing your zivug. You're supposed to look for your zivug. Everyone thinks that when you get married, you marry your bashar, your zivug, but then when they stay married for 10 years, they realize it's not their zivug. And the Gemara says, Kasha zivug shalom kriyas yamsuf. To marry your zivug is like kriyas yamsuf. Now, how often does kriyas yamsuf happen? Happen once ever. So people get married every day, every second people are getting married. Does that mean kriyas yamsuf happening every second? No, it means that unfortunately we live in this world. It's not a perfect world, and we're not marrying necessarily our zivug. But that's okay. It's okay. We're in a world of avoda, of working. This is the world we're in. Hopefully, Moshe Mashiach will reach that place where we can meet our zivug. But ultimately, if you're searching, you're supposed to be searching for your zivug. And the reason we can't have our zivug nowadays is because this was like an episode in Seinfeld where Jerry goes out with a lot of different girls, and he finally meets somebody that he really wants. He never wanted to marry anybody. He finally meets a girl he really wants to marry. He's like, I can't believe it. She's amazing. Everything I do, she does. He goes to the coffee shop. She orders cereal just like Jerry. And every nuance and every quirk in the conversation, the way he talks, the way he acts, she's just like him. So I gotta get married to this girl. I found exactly, And then at the end he says, I can't get married to her. You know why? Because I don't like myself. If I don't like myself, I can't like her. Yes, she was. So the point is that we don't like ourselves. You can't get married, right? If you're married to someone who's your better half, your other half, makes you whole, who is exactly your ziva, your yin to your yang, your two peas in a pod. If you don't like yourself, you're also not going to like your wife. It's going to make it worse because people. The truth is, people don't like themselves. That's the way it is. Unfortunately, people don't love themselves enough. They seek other people's approval. They base their opinion of themselves based on what other people say about them. They don't care internally about their own value in terms of who they are, in terms of loving themselves. So when you reach that level, you can love yourself. Then, Mos Mashiach, hopefully you'll introduce your zivug. You can marry someone who is like you, who is just a female version of you. So I do believe that the ultimate truth, the zivugo, that he doesn't talk about the word ziva, but it is a concept in Chazal, and it is true. Practically now it's not possible, but hopefully one day it will be possible. But you ideally have someone there is a female version of you. She is female, and she does base her decisions more on emotion than the intellect of a man. But there is a female version of you with the same interests and the same type of personality as you. And really, theoretically, you would get along amazing with her, and the excitement would be nonstop with that person, except for the fact that nowadays we don't love ourselves. You're not like your zivug. Hashem doesn't give you a zivug now. It gives you a different one person, a partner, to Azar Kenegdo. If Zacha, if he needs credit, so the woman will help him be a secretary. If he doesn't need the credit right now, he's doing a good job. Kenegdo, the wife will oppose him. It will be a challenge. It wasn't going to oppose him. It'll be a challenge to make your marriage good. But everyone has the ability to make his marriage an amazing thing if you work on it. You care about your wife. You have to really care about your wife. Hopefully, the wife will care about the husband. And that's really the basis of a marriage, is that to find that fun, to find that excitement in marriage, always maintain the fun, always maintain the camaraderie and the companionship, a fun companionship. I want to emphasize it. He doesn't emphasize the aspect of fun, but any companionship has to be a fun companionship. It's fun to spend time together. When you enjoy spending time together, it makes marriage exciting, it makes marriage lively, it makes marriage fun. And that's ultimately why we get married, for that companionship, for that fun. And, you know, doesn't end just by talking. It's a whole, that's the special nature of husband and wife, is that you can consummate that connection, that love in the bedroom also. So the whole marriage has meaning because you can take it to that next step. So that's why marriage should be special. Um, and I think this is really important. This really needs to be talked about a lot more. Is that it's really overly, people really think they're getting married as spiritual partnership in the Haredi world, in the ultra Orthodox world. People who are serious in yeshivas and girls who are serious from seminaries, they really think it's a partnership, a spiritual partnership. Girls, it's easier if it's because they don't, even though they're taught intellectually, you have to think of a spiritual partnership. When they get married, like the serial I was talking about in Mishmachah magazine, the girl, even though she's supporting a learning guy or a guy who's machazik other people, she really wants the guy for herself, the marriage for herself. But for men, it's much harder. They just view, once the physical attraction wears off, physical desires wear off, and he's not interested in. He's looking for the next thing. The next thing in his life is, being makarev people or becoming a Rosh Yeshiva, influencing Talmidim. And oftentimes it causes the marriage to suffer because the man is not interested in the marriage anymore. He's interested in achieving his own honor, his own goals, his own fitting in with other people. And usually the woman always wants just to have a marriage, to have a husband. That's usually what it is. Some women don't like their husbands, but most women just want to have, if they have a solid husband, they want to spend more time with the husband. Even they're taught in the best seminaries that they just want more. They just want that. They're emotionally, they're more in this world. They're closer to Hashem because they're more reality. They're more into reality, that they want their husband just for the companionship. Husband is much harder for them. That's why a lot of marriages suffer, in my opinion. That's what the author says. Not just me saying this. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's shir. And Shana Tova Masuka to everybody who's listening, because I'm recording this Erev Rosh Hashanah. This is my message for the year. I think this is the central topic of discussion in the world. Everyone's, from the time you become, I don't know, 10, 11 years old, I don't know, you're thinking about the other gender, the other sex, and you're thinking about your marriage, and, that's much of childhood, of your adult, of teenagehood, and adulthood is thought about, thinking about having a good relationship with the other sex, other gender, and having a great marriage. And this is the most important, central thing in life. This is right. Lo so tovi adam levado. Right, man and woman, right? Adam Rishon wasn't happy until he found someone that he could have a relationship with, a mate. So that's the central focus, not just in Judaism, in the whole world, the man-woman relationship. And it's really important what this author is saying over here, not just to the Haredi public and not to Jewish audience, any Jewish audience, but to the whole world in general, that you should seek the companionship, the fun companionship in marriage, and try to keep that alive as much as possible, because that will bring the most enjoyment to you in your life. Hope you enjoyed today's shir. See you in the next one.